everyone, welcome to the new video. So this is video 8 of Kubernetes playlist series, and this video is on namespaces and labels in Kubernetes, that why namespaces are needed, why labels are needed. We'll understand about it and we'll see some demo, or you can say commands. So without further ado, let's go. So, what are namespaces, why we use them for environment separation, what are labels, and how selectors work for these labels. So, namespaces in Kubernetes is a way to logically divide cluster resources. Okay, suppose there is a cluster, Kubernetes cluster, and we need to define, like, we don't want to assign for one app all the CPU, all the memory. Okay, so instead of that, we create namespaces, and on that namespaces we deploy our applications as pod. Okay, so each namespace is like a logical division of a cluster resources. So it's like a folders inside your Kubernetes cluster. So instead of having everything in default namespace, we can organize workloads like dev, test, staging, and prod. By default, Kubernetes has like default kube-system, kube-public, kube-node-lease, that we have already seen in kubectl CLI video, the demo, that what were the default namespaces were. So but we can create more. Instead of default namespaces, we can create our own like of environments like dev test, and inside those environments we can create the pods. So why do we need namespaces? Because in real world project we don't run everything in one environment. So we have dev for developer testing feature, we have QA for QA testing, and we have prod for live production user. That's why we need this separation. Okay, so we use namespaces so that developers don't accidentally affect production. Teams can work independently, resource limit can be applied per environment, and RBAC can restrict access per namespace. Okay, now creating a namespace. We can create namespace using CLI also, like we can use kubectl create namespace dev, and then once the namespace is created, suppose I am creating kubectl right now I have these namespaces. Right now, if I want to create namespace dev, okay, so you see namespace dev created, and if I do kubectl get ns, so you will see dev also there 6 seconds ago. So this is what ns is like a alias of namespaces. Okay, now we can also create, so this was through CLI, this was a direct command. Another way is to create it using YAML file. So you have to give API version, we have to give kind, the metadata will be the name that you want to give to the namespace, that is staging, and you just need to, after creating this YAML, you just need to do kubectl apply -f namespace.yaml, and it will also create the namespace. So this is a document structure or declarative way. Now deploying into a namespace, now after you have created a namespace, now if you want to create any any pod inside the namespace, then you need to give the namespace also inside the metadata, and your pod will be created in that particular namespace instead of the default. So if you are not giving the namespace, means your resources whatever you are creating are going into default namespace. Okay, so what are labels? When we saw the name YAML file, we saw that we are giving the key value pairs attached to the Kubernetes object. Whenever like we give labels, app is nginx, environment is dev, tier is front end. Why labels are used? Because they helps to organize resources, select resources, connect services to pod, and filter objects. So why we are using giving names and why we are giving labels to it? So that while doing the selection or while doing the filtration, we are able to connect to it, or we are able to get particular resource by those labels. That's why labels are like tags added to the resources of Kubernetes, and it's a key value pair. So this resource, it means that this resource, whatever we are creating, suppose pod we are creating, it is it belongs to this app, it belongs to this environment, it belongs to this front end. So it's like a tag to identify the resource. Okay, when we create AWS resource, we give tags there too. So it's like that. Okay. So what are selectors? So when we are doing filtration, so we will be selecting resources on the basis of labels. So selectors are like selecting the resources by labels. So identify resources using labels. So what we do, we say that if anything which is belonging, which is matching this label, so that resource should go there. So this tells Kubernetes select all pods where label app is nginx. Okay, why labels are important? So labels are used in deployments, replica sets, services, network policy, monitoring tool. Without labels, services cannot route traffic to pods, because when we are routing traffic, we use these labels. Okay, and all the pods with these labels have to do this or have to connect to this server. So when we are creating the deployment, we give labels like this, and then we are giving the selectors like this, that wherever the node, where all the pods have this label, it is like a selector, the label and the selector. Okay, now if we have to select any pod with specific label, so this is the command. And if there are multiple label, if we have to give more filters, it's like this command. We can give kubectl get pods -n, then the namespace name, then -l for labels, and give the label key and equals to value, comma key equals to value. Now if I copy this command and if I use this, I am not sure. You can see the labels using describe pod also. So right now, let me do one thing, describe pod my app. So what I can see is these are the label app pod. Okay, so if I do app my app, right? Okay, I have given the namespace as dev. If I don't give any namespace, so you can see all the pods which are with label app equals to my app, those pods names have been displayed on the screen. Okay, now how to show labels in our, if you just want to see the labels, then you just have to do this. Okay, so what you need to do is I'm not giving namespace, so it will show all the pods within default namespace, the labels of the pod. So you can see the labels are here, you can match. Okay, now real world example is, imagine you have front end, you have back end, you have database. You can label them and then you can filter the pods of that, like what are the pods with the front end label. You can filter those pods. If you want to see what are pods which are running the database, you can filter that pods. So that's why we should have labels, and that's why labels are meaningful. Labels should be meaningful, they are helpful in doing the selection and for environment isolation. We should not put everything in default namespace. I have done it, but that's not a correct way in the production or the real world project. So there should be use meaningful label keys, use consistent naming, always match service selector with pod label, use namespaces for environments isolation, avoid putting everything in default namespace. So today's assignment is, try to, whatever commands that I have tried here, try to do it, because you're already, if you are following my assignments and video, you should have already created a deployment.yaml. So just try running all the labels command today and see and match how it is working, how the commands are working. So yeah, that's all. That's all for today's video. I hope it's helpful. Please let me know your views in the comment section. Till then, take care. Bye.